So if you're listening to this, that means that I was able to successfully record some integrity lectures to maybe set the stage for some of the animals that we hope to see during the Alabama Communities class. I was telling Dr. Keener I'm in a little bit different situation from him. We can sort of count on seeing certain plant species in certain habitats, and we can identify them when we get there. It's a little bit different with many of the animals that we might encounter. We don't know what we're going to see, and in a lot of cases it'll be a brief sighting, and so it's a little bit harder. So what I want to do is just give you a fairly brief overview of some of the groups that we'll be looking for, and as we visit different habitats and see different natural communities, I'll, in advance of going there, maybe give you some sort of idea of what we might expect to see, and then hopefully we'll be able to identify some of the things that we see on site too. It's an important part of understanding what's happening in these natural communities. I'll start with a discussion of the herptiles that we're going to see. That's amphibians and reptiles. We call those groups herptiles. The study of those groups is herpetology. It's not just reptiles, it also includes amphibians. Should probably point out that I'm not going to talk about inverts, although we certainly will talk about inverts when we see them in the field. And obviously inverts are going to be a very important component of all the systems that we see. But to be perfectly honest, it's going to be a daunting enough task to talk about some of the major vertebrate groups without trying to get into all of the inverts we might potentially see. And I'm not going to talk about fish. Once again, we're unlikely to encounter species of fish unless we go actively looking for them, and in the event that we do that, then I will talk specifically about what we might be pursuing at the time. So we'll start with a look at some herptiles. Let me begin by just telling you that the class Amphibia includes, of course, the frogs and the salamanders. There are some another group that we won't encounter in North America, but the word amphibian means double life. It's a reference to the metamorphic life history patterns that amphibians have. And I'll just put this out there. I'm going to post these PowerPoints, but I won't really go into the biology of the group. It is available to you on the PowerPoints if you want to read through them. What I want to get to is what amphibians are and what some of the ones we might see might be or hear, quite frankly. There are two primary groups of amphibians that we might see, frogs and salamanders. Both of them have a metamorphic life history. That means they are born in the water. There are some exceptions, but by and large amphibians live the early part of their life in the water, and then they metamorphose into a more terrestrial form. Now that occurs to a greater or lesser degree in different species of amphibians, but it is a characteristic of the class as a whole. We don't have any gymnophionans, Sicilians. We'll skip those. We do have quite a few salamanders, which are in the order Caudata. You'll sometimes see that as the order Urodela. Both of those terms are a reference to the tail. Salamanders got one, whereas frogs, anurans, don't have a tail. The root word here is caud. That's a reference to the tail, as is the term euro here. So both of those terms are a reference to the presence of a tail in salamanders. There are a number of things, and this is actually I'm adapting this from my Field Zoo lectures. These are some of the traits that we have to look for in terms of identifying salamanders. We won't get into trying to key them out in the field, but sometimes it comes down to the presence of what we call a nasolabial groove that connects the nostril with the upper lip. We frequently have to count costal grooves, which go down the side. We are unlikely to see any giant salamanders, but I do want to make you aware of them. The several families constitute the giant salamanders: the cryptobranchs, the proteids, the sirenids, and the amphiumas. All of these are large, for the most part, permanently aquatic salamanders. They are reliant on external fertilization, and they include things like the hellbender, which is limited to, in Alabama, it's limited to rare occurrences in some of the rocky streams of northern Alabama. We will be in the home territory of hellbenders, but we're unlikely to see them. They're actually quite rare. There's a hellbender, and you can see that the southern extent of their range does reach down into northern Alabama. Another type of giant salamander are the proteids. These are the water dogs, also permanently aquatic. You see these plume-like gills which they retain for their entire life. They also are common through the middle part of the state, and there are other species actually that are also found in other areas. This is Nectarus byeri. We have amphiumas in abundance, but you rarely see them. Amphiumas are an eel-like salamander that has 4 more or less useless limbs. I'm looking to see if I can see it. Yeah, here for example, this is the front leg of a 3-toed amphiuma. The hind leg looks very much the same. They're vestigial. These things can be as much as 3 feet in length, and they are quite common actually in a number of sort of slow-moving aquatic habitats. You can see that the 2-toed amphiuma comes across the lower Atlantic seaboard and into South Alabama. The 3-toed amphiuma we have in our region, and it's distributed more heavily to the west of us. And then the sirens, the family Sirenidae, interesting group that has only front legs. They've lost the hind legs entirely. We have a couple of species of sirens in the state. Here's the lesser siren, and you can see that it is pretty broadly distributed across the southern part of Alabama. The family Ambystomatidae are salamanders. They're salamanders you're likely to be more familiar with. They've got a fairly heavy body. The head is sort of blunt. They do have a nasolabial groove, and that's how you tell members of this family from another group called the lungless salamanders. All of these are carnivores. In fact, adult salamanders in general are carnivores. The Ambystomatids are well known for showing neoteny. Neoteny refers to the attainment of sexual maturity by an individual that otherwise has larval characteristics. And many times you can go to a pet store and buy a larval tiger salamander, for example, which is neotenous. It's mature, but it still has external gills, and they do that under certain environmental conditions. And many times if you do that, you'll take it home, put it in an aquarium, and with the conditions less crowded, perhaps different water quality, they metamorphose into an adult tiger salamander. We have quite a few of the marbled salamander, which is rather small, maybe 3 or 4 inches in length typically. This is another illustration of marbles. You many times will find Ambystoma opacum. You'll find them in mating aggregations underneath a log or something. Much larger is the spotted salamander. We don't see a lot of these. They're more common in the northern part of the state. Same is true of the tiger salamander, which gets its name from this striped pattern on a sort of olive-colored side. This is one that you'll frequently see sold as a water dog. It's actually a neotenic larval tiger salamander, and many times they'll metamorphose after you buy them. that's the larvae, and that's what they look like. They've got these tuft-like gills, and as they mature into the adult form, they lose those and rely on lungs for respiration. All right, I'm going to stop here. I really just want to make sure that the recording is working, so I will come back and continue from here.